Hello guys and welcome back to the Summer Day Studios YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be making a character. So we've had a few requests to make a character, and instead of just jumping straight into making some kind of super realistic human being, we're going to make a little marshmallow boy who we're going to use in an animation later on. So we're kind of killing two birds with one stone. Today, we're just going to be looking at the modeling process. So this is kind of like a very, very brief intro into making a little character. So he has some little eyes, a little mouth, some blushies if you're that way inclined, and some little feetsies and some little hands. So we're going to be building him out probably just from a cylinder. Okay, so to begin with, nice and simple, we're just going to go up and create a cylinder. I'm going to pull that up on the grid, and we might scale him up a little bit. The default subdivision axis is going to be 20. I think I am happy with that, to be honest. So we're going to go ahead and stick with that. And marshmallows aren't quite as hard and solid as this, so we're going to go ahead and select the top and bottom edges. And I'm just going to add some bevels to these. Maybe just two for the time being to keep it simple. So the thing with characters is when you're modeling from scratch, you still want to keep things nice and simple, okay? Like when we're doing hard surface models, whatever they may be, you want to keep them nice and simple and blocked in to begin with, okay? Nothing crazy. Because then that way, it makes it a lot easier to actually kind of manage and see what you're doing. If you were to add too many polys too quickly, things would just get complicated, you know, it would get way too messy, and it'd be so much harder to actually work with. So we're going to keep it nice and simple. And like I said, this is a semi sort of tutorial. I'm not going to be explaining everything. This is more something that we needed to make, and I just thought it'd be a fun video to do, but feel free to follow along still. I'm not going to be going too fast. So this is the marshmallow body. Looks like a pretty decent marshmallow. It's got a bit of width, or a bit of bulging on the side. And that's going to be the base of our marshmallow. Nice and simple. I'm trying to keep somewhat even quad topology here. I might actually even move these down. The reason for that is because unlike with hard surface models, character models actually have to deform. They're somewhat organic, right? This is a marshmallow. It's squishy, it's stretchy, it can bounce. And the best topology for anything that squashes or stretches or deforms is smooth, even quads. So that is what we're going for as much as possible. Triangles on the top like this, probably no good. So we can go ahead and fix these up too. I'm going to go ahead and just select all the edges that make up the cross, or except for the cross in the middle, sorry. And then I'm going to use the multi-cut tool just to add in a few more edge loops here, to make these all quads instead, like so. And then I'll do the same on the bottom too, like this. And then just going straight across again. Okay, nice. Now that we've got the body done, let's go ahead and add in the arms. So what I like to do in this case is I'm just going to cut this guy in half, basically. I'm going to use the face select tool, or face select mode, just to chop them in half, because this way we only have to do one side. You can also use mirror as well. This is just how I like to do it. And I'm going to select these four faces in the middle of his torso, and I am going to... So we're going to take these four quads, and then I'll just do an extrude face and go in, because I don't want the base of the arm to be quite that big. I want it to have little stubby arms, and then I'll probably move this down a little bit, like so. And then we're just going to extrude straight back out again, and we're just going to come down. So this looks really blocky right now, but don't worry, that will get fixed later. Okay, again, we're just trying to keep this as simple as possible, and you can do this to build human characters as well. It doesn't just have to be a mushroom boy. They can also be human shaped. But if I go ahead and smooth that, you can see that's starting to smooth out the edges, and it's not perfect. It's still a bit angular, but we'll get to that, and we'll fix that soon enough. Okay, I'm going to pull down some of these vertices. Again, when you're doing this, unlike with hard surface, and while it is important for hard surface, you want to make sure you're kind of keeping as even of a topology as you can, just because it's going to save you a lot of headache later on, and it deforms a lot easier as well. So what I'm going to try and do now is just smooth out these vertices to give this guy a bit more of a rounded nubbins arm. Technical term. Pull that out like that. And now that I smooth that, that's a little bit more rounded, but it's still not 100%. What we could do actually is just circularize these boys. That's a really, really good tool to use whenever you need something to be a lot more rounded like this. Okay, now that's looking a lot better. But I think I still want this to come down at more of an angle, maybe like this. And then this might have to come down too, somewhat, to compensate for that. Okay, kind of like this, and then maybe pull this one out here because it's looking a bit flat. There we go. I'm pretty happy with that. We could go ahead and circularize this loop here if we wanted to as well. Just to make that join a little bit nicer. There we go. And you can see the topology looks not the best right now, but we'll go ahead and subdivide this before we're done anyway. We're probably only going to subdivide this once, just to give us some extra topology to work with, and so it's not too low poly. What I might do as well, if we have the time, is I'll give this guy a little thumb too. Because how else is he going to grab stuff, you know? He's just got little nubbins. But that's, I think, good enough for the arm. What I'm going to do next is create the leg, and I think I want the legs to kind of come out not too close to the center, so there is actually some space for his legs to move. Maybe we'll pick these faces here, and let's just go ahead and extrude those straight down, I think, like so. Okay, and then these will also come down to a bit of a point. And again, we want to keep this even, so go ahead and move anything over that you have to. And I'm going to circularize these two. And we can just smooth that to see what that looks like. I might add an edge loop there just to give that a bit more shape. I don't want this to come straight down. I do want there to be a bit of a notch here. And then we could potentially circularize this. We'll see what that looks like. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. And then we'll do the same here. And I'm not too worried about this looking absolutely perfect. That's one of the reasons why I went with a marshmallow, is because you can kind of get away with some things looking a bit lumpy because it's a marshmallow. It's lumpy, okay? It's not going to be some sort of like perfectly shaped doll type thing. So it's okay if they're not 100% smooth. I'm just using average vertices here. This is a good way just to quickly like pull vertice shapes in like this when you want to create a more rounded edge. Okay. I might make the base of his feet a little bit bigger, because right now he's looking a little spindly and very top heavy. Maybe something more like this. There we go, slightly chunkier legs. Okay. What you could even do is create like a whole group of these guys with different shapes, and that's actually what I might do. So now if I put this guy together, there we go. This guy looks like the big one of the group. Okay, and that is a very, very quick marshmallow guy. I made a mushroom guy a little bit ago. I might add an edge loop here and here. Well, in fact, we're going to subdivide this guy. So what I prefer to do in this case is just do creasing for the time being on anywhere that I want to keep hard before we go ahead and do the subdivide. And you'll see what that does in a minute. So I'll go ahead and crease these. And these act kind of just like bevels as well. They hold those edges for us. Like so. I might elongate this guy a little bit. Like this. At this stage, you know, seeing as it's quite low poly, it's a lot easier to fix things if we need to. So I could make him a little bit narrower. Something like that, actually. I think I prefer that. And I'll go ahead and just make sure his feet are sitting just on the base of the floor like that. And I might flatten out the base of his feet too a little bit so they kind of sit more on the ground. Like so. And then maybe we'll bring his torso in a little bit. I'm using soft select here as well. You just press B on your keyboard to enable that. And that's a good way just to edit parts of your model proportionally like this. So I'm just rounding him off a little bit like that. Making the front a little bit more flat because we can go ahead and add eyes to the front of him in a minute. So we'll just make that a bit flatter. Not too flat, because again, this is still a marshmallow. We want that to be the same, right? But there we go. That's a good way that we can just go ahead and add eyes on there now. So to create eyes, we'll go ahead and do that in a second. I might just make a few different adjustments here. I want the top of this guy to be a bit more rounded. Like so. And I'm okay again if he's looking a little bit lumpy. That's all right by me. Maybe the bottom here, we'll bring this up a little bit. But really you can shape them however you like. Okay, we'll go ahead and create some spheres. These are going to be used for the eyes. And what I like to do in this case is have the pole, the point where all the vertices, all the lines at the edges intersect into this one point here. I like to have that pointing out. That's kind of the way the eye points. Otherwise, it just, I don't know. You could do it the other way, but I feel like it doesn't really make sense, right? For the front of the eye to be this way. Almost makes more sense for it to be this way, right? And I'm just going to set the subdivisions for those to be 16 each. And I'll make this a bit bigger. And probably a bit flatter as well. Something like this. And this might look a bit scary to begin with. Because he's just got eyes and no mouth. But once we give him a little smiley mouth, this will look a lot better. Something like this. And we can always go ahead and adjust these afterwards. I'm just going to duplicate this and then mirror it across to the other side. Like so. We could even make these a little smaller. Something like that. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to create a torus, and we're going to use this to create the mouth. Okay, that looks really weird, like he's in shock, but we only need half of this. So I'm going to go ahead and just reduce the section radius. And then delete most of these faces. Okay, and then just push that in there like that. In fact, before doing that, it's a good idea just to reduce the number of segments down to something a bit more reasonable. There we go. Okay, so now that I've removed those parts and reduced the amount here, we're going to bring the mouth up a little bit. And I want this to stick out a little bit too. Something like this. And then I'm just going to go fill the sides or fill the empty holes here. I have a little script to do this, a cap script that someone very generously provided for us on Instagram a while ago. I have made a tutorial on it, but if you'd like to see more about that, I can show you that too. It's completely free as well. So maybe I'll link that in the description. Then we'll go ahead and do another average vertice. Actually, no, you know what? We'll bevel the edges here to create a nice rounded shape. Actually, no, we'll average the vertices. Great. Like so. And if we just smooth this all out, there we go. We have a little marshmallow boy. I am going to do follow-up videos probably later on where I go over how to texture this guy and make him look a lot more realistic, because while he does look very, very just plain and cute right now, very, very simple, like we've made this guy in 14 minutes, I do want him to have a realistic texture, kind of like this sort of thing, like an actual marshmallow. And I've gone ahead and created a shader for that, and I did that a while ago, but I'll probably do a tutorial on how to make that. And then how I apply it to this guy. I'm going to go ahead and make a few more variants of this guy, probably, for the animation that we do eventually create. Some with thumbs as well. I feel like this guy's going to have a specific purpose, and he's not very dexterous. And then I'm also going to tutorial on how to rig these as well. I haven't done one of those yet at all. We haven't done any rigging at all on the channel so far, and I feel like that would be interesting as well, especially since we're doing characters. But you can apply that to hard surface too. So just a very, very quick, simple, and sort of different video today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked it. If you have any questions at all, please do let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.